Good morning everyone and warm welcome to Markkinointikollektiivis Aamukahviseura Morning Coffee Club. Aamukahviseura is a virtual morning coffee event organized by Markkinointikollektiivi, and inspiration is shared here for all marketing experts. I am Henttunen Janika here from Markkinointikollektiivi, and it's so lovely to see good morning messages rolling in the chat. So if you already haven't said hi, go ahead and let us know where you have opened your webinar lines today from. I'm from Espoo, Finland, and I believe we are pretty international today. There's also a poll running right now, so go ahead and leave your own vote in there. We'll take a look at the results in just a bit, so you still have time to answer the question, have you ever gotten a wrong answer from an LLM? So go ahead and go answer that. Today, our topic in Aamukahviseura is Not All AI is the Same, a guide for marketers on choosing the right tool. Our guest, Torkel Öhman from MK AI, will share his knowledge about the topic, and my colleague Emmi Paunonen is in the chat today taking good care of you all. And since today's topic is AI, which always gets the questions flowing, so we've also got Semika from MK AI joining us live in the chat, so she's there to answer any questions that comes to your mind, so go ahead and send those out also today in the chat. But it's pretty lonely up here, only by myself. So without further ado, I think it's a great time to let's get Torkel on the stage. So warm welcome, Torkel.
Thank you, and good morning, Finland and the world, I guess.
So nice to see you and have you here. How has your morning started?
It's been good. A little bit earlier since I'm in Stockholm, but since I have 4 kids, 2 set of twins, so this was actually quite a calm morning because I left before everything just
yeah. before all that happens. So fun. Like I said before, we have the poll running. I think we will check the answers before we go to your presentation. So we asked in the poll, have you ever gotten wrong answers from LLM? And the answer options were yes or no. You still have time to answer that if you already haven't, but most of the answers say yes. So almost 99% say that they have gotten a wrong answer from LLM, and only 1% says that no. So someone has a really good LLM in use.
So someone hasn't chatted enough with them.
Torkel, what do you think about these results?
I think it's a little bit surprising because, or perhaps it isn't, thinking about the audience. But usually, when you poll this or ask this of people who has used LLMs a little bit less, the answer can be more 50-50 or more towards the no. But the more you use them, the more you see that sometimes they are wrong.
Yeah. I think you will give us a really juicy topic today, so I think it's time to get to your presentation. So go ahead and take the stage to yours, and I'm gonna hop back there and we will discuss a bit more later. So go ahead, Torkel.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to put on my timer here because I have a habit of speaking too much. So, good morning and welcome to the World Championship in Acronyms and Trendy Words. My name is Torkel Öhman, and I am the CTO and co-founder of a company that is called MK AI. And today we are going to talk about, surprise, surprise, AI. So the agenda for today is quite hefty. These are quite big subjects, and I'm going to switch some between high level and quite nitty gritty. If you have any questions, please write them in the chat. We will try to have time to answer them. If not, we will try to answer them by email or something else afterwards. So we're going to talk a little bit about MK AI. Then we're going to talk about LLMs, digital marketing, a little bit about MCPs, a little bit about the do's and don'ts. And hopefully you will leave this webinar with a little bit of inspiration and hopefully some new knowledge. We started Amanda AI 8.5 years ago. And we're not the cool kind of AI. We're not an LLM. We do not generate any text, any video, any images, etc. We are an AI that optimizes for an optimal result. Statistical engines within the limitations and restrictions of each marketing domain we support. We have served thousands of accounts across 40 markets, and we do everything from the smallest accounts, mainly through partners, to some of the largest advertisers in the world. So let's start and jump into the why, because this is a question you should always ask yourself when you're thinking about using AI for automation. Should you even use it? Because you should never use a complex tool when a simple tool is sufficient. That's just one of the rules of the universe, and there are no tools as complicated as AI. So we should at least look at this question a little bit before we move further. And to answer this question, we need to look at two things. So we need to look at what is it that AI is solving, and two, is it applicable for digital marketing? And when we look at AI, what is it that you're getting out of AI? It is mainly a democratization of time. We can talk about machine learning, reinforced learning, large language models. We can talk about math or content creation. But in essence, what you're getting is you're getting output of hours of manual work, but you're getting them much more efficient when we're talking cost-wise and how many people you need to run it. Quality can always be discussed, but I still think that if we're talking about the creative part of this, you're getting the top percentile of output when you use an LLM, if you use the right tool for the right task. And if we're talking about math, you're getting it even higher than that. You're getting an extreme level of output, and that's because math is more suited for machines. That's binary. 1 + 1 = 2. It's a right answer or a wrong answer. While creative stuff, that can be nuances, it can be a matter of taste, and it's not as straightforward. So now, if we look at digital advertisement, do we need it? Digital advertisement needs optimization, and I know that some people, perhaps some in the audience, think that all you need to do is enable a Performance Max campaign on Google Ads and an Advantage Plus campaign on Meta and just leave it be, and that is good enough. But this is a subject we could discuss in depth. But if you concentrate this question, it becomes a question of, does your input affect the output? And it does. If you add an ad group, add an ad set, an audience, change an ad, it will change the output. If you have a search campaign with one keyword and you compare it to a search campaign with 20,000 keywords, it will affect the outcome. If you have a catalog feed or a shopping feed that is undermanaged and not up to date with prices and best practice, it will affect the outcome if you improve on that. So the input affects the outcome, and that answers the question that you need to optimize digital marketing. And the digital marketing has become more complex over the years. We are looking at more campaign types than before. We're looking at more channels. We're looking at different ways of optimizing, and we are moving towards a time where this becomes even more complex, especially if we're looking towards what's happening with Google, that you have Google traditional search, But now you also have Google AI mode, and there you have different levers to turn for your optimization. You have a different consumer behavior. You have basically two different channels within Google, and they need to be treated as such. There will be different results in the traditional search, and it will be a different result in AI mode. We also have Google that is launching UCP, which enables customers to do the actual transaction within Google, and that comes with another set of problems, mainly with attribution, assisted conversions, help from other channels, and so on and so forth. And for basically all channel types, we need, perhaps not today, but soon, start to optimize both for agents and for humans. And that in itself is a complexity that we need to manage. So the case for automating is quite strong, and something as complex as digital marketing, the case for AI is even stronger, I would say. Then I'm a bit biased since we started a company around this, but that is usually the case when you look at these research papers as well, cases for AI. So let's go into the what. That's much more fun. What do you have at your disposal? What can you use? You have LLMs like Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, and they are, as I think most of you would agree, incredible. There are some really, really good applications for them. And there are a lot of talks about MCPs, especially in the digital marketing world. And I just want to clarify before we move on, so there's no misunderstanding exactly what an MCP is. So an MCP is just a way for an LLM like Claude to talk to another platform. That can be Google or Meta or Amanda AI or whatever it might be. But it's just a way for an LLM to talk to something. There's no inherent optimization layer or intelligence. It's just, instead of you getting a recommendation for something that you should do in Google or Meta, the LLM can perform that action instead. That sounds great, right? And it is. It's really cool, and it's really usable for the right thing. And that's where I think things become a bit complicated if you don't really know the limitations of certain systems. So to create a campaign structure, to get a voiceover of numbers, to create headlines, descriptions, types of ads, 100% yes, this is the right use case for it. That's the way you should work. But to let Claude manage your budgets or analyze which ad groups or assets or audiences or keywords that are performing the best, that's a hard no. That is something that is very risky. LLMs are really good at language. The hint is actually in the name, large language models, and they work on probabilities. They predict the next token. A token can be a word, a part of a word, a number, etc. But the important thing here is predict. They predict similar to how a weatherman predicts the weather tomorrow. Now they're doing a much better job than the weatherman, at least the weatherman's in Sweden. So they are very good at it, but it's still a prediction. And it's not deterministic. 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 100% of the times. The same question can have different answers. And that's really, really good for language. If I ask Claude to create 2 different headlines for Amanda AI, the best one, I get these 2. Both are good. Neither is wrong. Neither is right. This same question, 2 different answers. And again, this is very good for language. It becomes extremely different if we're talking about math or a budget. Now, this example is highly unlikely. not impossible, but highly unlikely that the system would confuse 100 euros with €1. But mistaking 2.39 in ROAS with 2.3, that is quite likely. And especially over time, especially if you have longer chats or longer projects running, because that is attached to something that is called the context window. And when we're talking about LLMs, we do talk about the context window and the math problem. And I think it is quite important to understand why this is an issue and what is happening. Because if you understand what is happening and why this is an issue, it becomes easier to understand, okay, when do I use this system, the LLM, and when do I need to pair it with something else? So basically, what is the use case for different systems? And the problem is this. It's a bit nitty gritty, but you can think of it like this. If every token in a prompt is in a room and it's a party, every token needs to shake hands with each other in order to understand each other. And that means that if you have 1,000 tokens in a prompt, that's roughly a short email, then that requires 1 million handshakes. Quite a lot of handshakes, but not unmanageables. But if you do a prompt of 100,000 tokens, then you need 10 billion handshakes. And that's a lot. That's a big, big number. And that's too much. And this is where the system starts to cut corners. And 100,000 tokens, it is not that much, especially if we're talking about ads account and we're talking about tables with dates, with several different KPIs, with different channels, etc. The way the system cuts corners are a few different ones. I'm not going to talk about all of them. I'm going to talk about chunking without aggregation, because that's also called Simpson paradox, and I like that. But it's also one that is that I see quite reoccurring in both on LinkedIn and in the forums I hang out in, and subword tokenization. So the chunk without aggregation, that is basically when the system has too much data, it evaluates things in chunks. Then it summarizes the chunk, and that sounds neat, right? And it is neat, but also it isn't neat. Basically, what you're doing is that if you have several data sets, or if you have a data set that is too large, then it will summarize them separately. So to make this into an example that is easier to understand, if you have Google Ads data and you have metadata and you ask for a return on ad spend, it will calculate the return on ad spend on Google. Let's say that comes to 5, and then on Meta, let's say that comes to 1.5, and then it will summarize and take the average of those two, which becomes 3.25. But that's not how it works. You need to summarize the total cost and total revenue together. You all know this. If you spend 10 times more on Meta than on Google, then your ROAS is not 3.25. And then we have subword tokenization, and this one is really sneaky because it's a problem that becomes a problem over time as the context window becomes full, because that is a finite number. You can only put that much into a chat or into a project before the context window becomes full. And this is when the system stops looking at the full word or full sentence, and starts to look at just the first part of a word, and then assumes the rest of the word is the same. And this can become quite an issue if you're evaluating, for example, product SKUs or keywords in long data sets. If the system just looks at the first 6 characters and ignores the last 2 ones, then a lot of products becomes the same, and so on and so forth. So I have to speak quicker because, as I said, as always, I am talking too much. Let's go to the how. Now, the fine people at Google, at Anthropic, at OpenAI, they are very smart. They know that this is an issue. So they have ways of mitigating these issues and ways of solving it. And they usually use tools so that the system uses tools instead of doing the calculations within the LLM system. The LLM uses a tool like a calculator. And that is great, but these tools are quite general. They can't manage complex tasks or complex calculations because, again, it is language models. They're not made for large data sets. They're not made for math. So what the LLM does quite often and should do in every instance is that they propose that you instead build a Python application or similar that manages the data and manages the calculations. And then the Python application can manage the math or the calculation, and then the LLM can help you with the output and the application of it. And this is exactly what is needed. A deterministic execution layer, it's called. And this is regardless if we're talking about Google Ads or meta optimization or website analytics or finance or reporting, whatever you're trying to use these systems for, it is usually needed that it's paired together with something else to create value. And I am going to jump some. Let's talk about how we use it, so you get an example, a real world example of how you can use it. We use APIs to get all the data from Google, Meta, and Bing, and there's this huge data sets, a lot of data. We do the calculations, we do everything within our system. And then currently we use Claude for three things, basically, and then we have betas for some more things, but we use Claude for writing a report. We have performance data, we have a lot of nerdy metrics, a lot of data, and that data doesn't say that much if you just present the data, because it is, again, quite complex things, and it's quite a lot of data. But then we can have Claude write and voiceover to this data, and that gives much more value. Our users also have the option to use Claude for ad creation. So we crawl a site, we generate a summary of the site, we send that to Claude, and we get back ad creation. That is also a use case where Claude or the LLM, whichever LLM you want to use, is isolated. It's not dependent on a context window. It's not dependent on being in the same chat. We can send this in as much volume as we want because the context doesn't need to follow with each prompt. And we use Claude to give us contextual relevance of keywords. Some keywords and some optimizations, they make sense from a pure performance perspective, from a data-driven performance perspective, but they don't make sense from a relevance perspective, and there Claude is really great. And in beta, we have the most important feature of all, at least in my mind, and that is to use Claude as an interface so that you can do prompt-based setups and campaign structure and prompt the data. That is the really, really strong point of an LLM, to be used as an interface with other systems. So both with humans and with other systems. And that is the difference between using an LLM and having an actual AI system with multiple components, where you use a system for optimization. So, too lazy didn't read. Would have been a really short talk if I if I just said this, but LLMs, mainly language and interface, other systems for calculations and data management, and other systems for execution layers. I didn't talk that much about execution systems, the execution layer, because we were short on time. But execution layers are equally important. The rules of the system you're sending instructions to. If this is Google, you have set rules for character length, but you also have set rules for how what you're doing affects the optimization. And the same thing goes if you're pushing data into a CRM system, how leads should be attributed, and so on and so forth. So, thank you so much for joining me in this morning session, and I will look at some questions.
Great. Thanks a lot, Torkel. That was really interesting. Plenty of info for us this morning. We got some questions beforehand, and I think we can dive onto those. We have a few minutes for that. So, one question that we got is that is it more efficient to use only one tool or many tools depending on the case? And if using many is recommended, how should that be managed? Do you have any tips for that?
Yes, so I would definitely use different tools. I think LLM has become I'll take Claude as an example. Just Claude has become sort of an umbrella tool which people use for everything, and I think they like that. But I think it's also very, very risky to use one tool as an umbrella. You should use the right tool for the right task. And how to manage it, the easiest way is to manage it through an MCP or similar, to use the LLM as a human interface, because prompting is so intuitive.
Yeah, really good tip on that. Then we got a question that which AI tool would be best for checking brochure language versions are up to date, both in terms of numerical data and text? Any tips on that?
So it was a very specific question, and I
Yeah.
think I need to know a little bit more about it. But if you're checking numerical data and version histories in bulk, I'm assuming that there's a lot of them. Then this is not the case for example, Claude. It should be. It could probably just be a Python application.
Yeah.
Perhaps with an LLM overlay or something like that. If it is analyzing text, you obviously need an LLM, but then there's ifs and buts on how to set that up.
Really good tip. And like you said, you need to know a bit more to answer that throughoutly. So we shared your LinkedIn profile in the chat. So go ahead and grab Torkel's LinkedIn and get him to your network, so you can. I'm sure people can come and ask straight from you if any questions come up. Yeah. One question, and then I think we'll heading to wrap up. But everyone, when they're testing AI, there's a lot of fails. What's the best way to make use of fails from a learning perspective? Do you have any tips on that?
Well, yes. So you can always learn from your mistakes, and I think one of the big things is to learn where is this system or this tool suited and where isn't it. We talk about AI, we usually talk about LLMs, but we have machine learning, we have reinforced learning, we have sequential decision optimization. We have a lot of different tools that are self-learning, and I
Yeah.
think one part of the journey is to understand, okay, where does each tool fit into my sort of my workflow or my optimization.
Yeah. So many thanks, Torkel. I will tell us what's happening next week, and during that, Torkel, you can think what words you will say when we will say bye-bye to everyone. But Aamukahviseura continues next week, and we will switch back to Finnish. And the topic is going to be luova sisältö on uusi kohdentaminen, mikä pysäyttää kuluttajan vuonna 2026. Torkel, translate that. We'll continue on that topic next week when Otava Media and Leena Lehti-Martikainen and Maarit Nykänen will come as our guests. But before we go to that topic next week, Torkel, what are the words you're gonna give our webinar participants or someone who's watching the recording? What do you want to say to them?
I want to say use the right tool for the right task. There's a reason why Gemini isn't optimizing Google Ads platform. It's a reason why there are deterministic systems. Don't be afraid to try, test new tools. You will need it to have an advantage in the future. So test, be brave, and yeah, good morning.
Great. Good morning. Warm thanks to Torkel, Emmi, and Zemika in the chat, and also our participants today. I hope you all have a pleasant day, and we'll see you back next week. So bye-bye.